Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm demonstrating how to crochet the Autumn Amore Beanie, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description because you will want to get the free written pattern for this, as this pattern comes in 6 different sizes, all the way from 0 to 6 months up through large adult. I'll be showing the basics of how to make all these sizes today, and we'll be using Red Heart Amore yarn. It's super soft, available at redheart.com. Again, follow that link in the description, and at many local Walmarts. You'll also need a US K hook, which is 6.5 millimeters, as well as a US I hook, which is 5.5 millimeters. I also recommend the use of stitch markers. These are by Clover. The hooks shown here are by Furls. Let's go ahead and get started. Now here in front of me, I have the smallest size of the Autumn Amore Beanie, the 0 to 6 month size. And you can see, hopefully here, that this pattern is worked top down. So we start in the middle with our darkest color, or that's the one I chose to use. Obviously you can use whichever colors in whichever order you like, but I have my darkest color, then my medium gray, and then my lightest color, sort of this off-white. And we just work our way all the way down to the brim, and then we make the brim itself. I chose to use my medium color for this. Again, you can actually pick whichever colors you like to use. We're going to use our larger hook, the USK, to make all the moss stitch rows, and then for the brim, that's where I like to switch to an I, just to get the brim a little bit snugger. So let me set this one aside and pull up my color A. Here we are. Now we're going to begin this pattern again with our K hook, and we're going to start with a magic circle. I do have a separate tutorial for this linked in the pattern if you need a little closer look at this technique. I'm going to wind my yarn twice towards me over my finger, put my hook under both loops, grab the one that's furthest back, pull it through, yarn over, sort of snug that slip stitch down right there, and then I'm ready to begin crocheting that first round of the pattern. I'm going to start with a chain 1, then I'm going to work a single crochet and another chain 1 into the ring 3 times. So I'm going to go under both of those loops that are around my finger, pull up a loop, and finish a single crochet. Then I chain 1 and do that again. Go under both loops, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through to finish my single crochet, and chain 1 again. And now that I have a couple stitches worked around this magic circle, I can go ahead and pull my finger out and separate those out a little bit. Now, I like to use stitch markers at this point. You can see I've made a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, but finding those single crochets finding those chain 1 spaces to work back into on the next round can be a little bit difficult. So I like to go ahead and put a stitch marker in that first chain 1 space, like that. And then I'll get another one, and I'll just go ahead and put it right around that chain 1 I just made, so I don't lose that one. Get my hook back in the loop there. Find my working yarn, there we go. And then again, going around both pieces of yarn here, I'm going to make my 3rd single crochet into my magic circle, chain 1, put another stitch marker right in that chain 1, and then I'm ready to join and tighten up my circle here. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull right on that tail end, move that out of the way so it's a little easier to see, pull on that tail end of my magic circle, and you can see it closes right up. Then I can find that first single crochet I made and put my slip stitch right in there. And that will finish round 1. And your stitch count for this is 3 single crochets. So to begin round 2, I'm going to slip stitch in that first chain space that we made. So that's where these markers come in really handy. So I can find that same spot with my hook, put my hook in there, and I'm actually going to yarn over and pull that slip stitch through with my next color. I chose to use a medium gray here. So I want to leave a good 6 inches or so I can weave in that tail, but then I'll just yarn over and pull it right through that chain 1 space and right through the loop that was on my hook. So now we're crocheting just with this color. I'm going to leave each color attached and just pull it up on the inside of the hat as I work. So we'll only have 6 ends to weave in at the end of our hat. Now I'm ready to begin round 2. Well, I've already begun it with that slip stitch, but after that, we're going to chain 1. And then I am going to single crochet and chain 1 twice in each one of these marked chain spaces. So I'm going to go right back into that same one we just slip stitched into. And at this point, I can go ahead and pull out that stitch marker. And I'll make a single crochet and a chain 1, I want to go ahead and put a stitch marker on here. I'm only going to do this for the chain 1 spaces for the first few rounds. As you keep working rounds, the hat sort of opens up. The stitches get a little bit further apart. You're not working in such a small space, and they're a lot easier to find. But for the first few rounds here, having these stitch markers is super duper helpful, at least in my experience. There we go. So I've got a single crochet and a chain 1 twice into that first space. Then I can hop over to my next marked chain 1 space right there. Go into that one, make a single crochet and a chain 1. I'll go ahead and pull that stitch marker out and reuse it for this new chain 1. And of course I want to go back into that same chain space and do it again. Another single crochet. There we go. And another chain 1. Get a new stitch marker for that one. There we go. And then we just have one more chain space here left to work into. So I'll go in there, make a single crochet and chain 1. Move that stitch marker up here. And then do it one more time, right back in that same chain space there. Oops, get that stitch marker out of the way there. Don't want to accidentally get that tangled up or anything. There we go. And that would be the last one then for round 2. And the count for round 2 is 6 single crochets. And of course you've got 6 chain 1s marked right in between. So at a glance you can see we're right on track. So I'm just going to slip stitch to that first single crochet again to finish off round 2. Then round 3 is going to start the same way as the previous round. I go into the next chain 1 space, but I'm going to yarn over and pull through with my next color. In this case, I used this really pretty chamomile color. It's sort of an off-white. Again, I want to leave a tail there so I can weave it in later and just yarn over and pull through that one right there. And then I'm going to begin, or continue, I should say, around with round 3, where I start with a chain 1. Then I'm going to single crochet in that same marked chain 1 space, the one I just slip stitched into, and chain 1. But I'm only going to do that once in this first one here. So let me go ahead and move that stitch marker up to mark this chain 1 space. Then in the next chain 1 space here, I'm going to do it twice like we did previously. So I single crochet, chain 1, mark that chain 1. There we go. Go back into that same chain 1 space. Make another single crochet. There we go. And chain 1 again. Like so. And mark that one. There we go. All right, and that is our basic repeat. So you can see we've got 2 more sets of 2 here. So I'm going to put 1 single crochet, chain 1 in the next one, 2 single crochets with chain 1s in between on the next one, then 1, then 2. And that's how we maintain our increases. So the next one here, our third chain 1 space gets a single crochet and a chain 1. I'll move up the stitch marker. Then our next chain 1 space, I'm going to do that twice. Single crochet and chain 1. Move up that stitch marker. And then go right back into that chain space for another single crochet and chain 1. And that's going to spread out our increases there so that we've actually added 6 stitches if you include the chain spaces, but for the purposes of counting, we're going to say we add 3 single crochets in every round as long as we're increasing. So I've got 2 more spaces left. So this first one, of course, just gets 1 single crochet worked into it. And then the next space gets 2. 1. There we go. Now, as you can see, it's very possible for your yarns to start getting tangled with this pattern. I just like to really go ahead and take my time every round, especially after I've gotten past these first 3 here, to go ahead and just pull out the yarn I'm using for that round and sort of have it sitting separately from the other 2. There we go. And then that keeps it from getting tangled as I work. It takes a little bit more time, but it is worth it if you're like me and you hate untangling yarn later. So I'm just going to go ahead and slip stitch to that first single crochet there. There we are. And that is the end of round 3. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitch markers and 9 single crochets in round 3. Round 4, let's go ahead and make together. Now, as I said, I like to go ahead and make sure to pull up the yarn I'm going to be using. I'm just using some little leftover scraps here to make this little example hat for you today. So, not super pretty wound yarn, but it is definitely very usable here. Let me get it all untangled. There we are. And just like that, it is now free of the other two. And I've kind of set it off to the side here so I know it won't get tangled as I work. So let me find that one again here, kind of shake out all our little tails. Ah, fingers work for me. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead, and it's a little messy right now because of all the ends, but I'm just going to go ahead and pull this right along the inside of the hat. Now, I don't want to pull too tight or it will make the top of the hat squish up, and I don't want to make it too loose because then it will catch on your hair or bobby pins or whatever else you've got on your head. So I just need to make sure that when I do pull this one up through this next slip stitch here, that it's lays right along the inside of the hat, inside the hat quite nicely. So I'm going to start the same way again. I go into that next chain 1 space, yarn over with my new color, and you can see I just kind of adjust it so I can tell it's not pulling, but it's not loose either. Then I'll go ahead and pull it through to finish that slip stitch. Then we're ready to continue with round 4. We're going to chain 1, go back into that same chain 1 space with a single crochet and chain 1 again. Mark that one. Then in the next chain 1 space, I am going to single crochet and chain 1 twice. So far exactly the same as last round. Single crochet, chain 1. Move that stitch marker up. Then go back into that space for another single crochet and chain 1. There we are. And this is probably the last round I'll bother using the stitch markers on. At this point, it's getting pretty easy to see exactly where those chain 1 spaces are. So I've made 1 in the first space, 2 in the next space. So in that third space, remember sort of 3 sets of 3 there? That next one, we're just going to do 1 again. So 1 single crochet, there we are, and chain 1. There we are. Then we start our repeat over. So the next chain 1 space gets a single crochet and a chain 1. Move up that stitch marker. Oops, that one didn't quite close for me there, did it? There we go. I like these ones because they're quick release, but then you have to spend just that little extra time to get them closed. There we go. All right, so let me make sure I'm on track here. I've got 1, 2, 1. So our second repeat is 1, and then 2. So we put 2 single crochets in this next space here. There's the first one. And then 1 more. There. And then, oh, out of that color. Let me get some more here. There we are. Like I say, we're almost done with those stitch markers anyway. And then the next one to finish off our repeat is just 1. Single crochet and chain 1. So that's 2 of our repeats around for round 4. So we've got 1 more to go. So we start with 1 single crochet in the next space, of course always followed by a chain 1. There we go. 2 in the next space. 1. There we are. Pull that back down. Then we can do 1 more. So that's our 2. And then our, oops, get that one closed there. And then our very last one just has 1 single crochet again. So at the end of round 4, you should have a total of 12 single crochets. And that means 12 chain spaces. Oops, so you can quickly count your stitch markers if you like to make sure you're on track. After you slip stitch here to that first stitch, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I think we're pretty good there. And I'm not going to worry too much about these stitch markers if they fall out at this point. Like I said, at this point, it is pretty easy to see where those chain 1 spaces it's a lot easier than it was those first couple rounds when everything was really close. So beginning with round 5, we're going to be following basically the same pattern for all our increases, and it will be a gradually increasing pattern. Again, you can refer to the written pattern to see exactly how this works and follow along and help you keep track. But I'm going to start again the same way we have all the other rounds. I go into the next chain 1 space, and I'm going to pull up the next color. So I can just look at the back here, and of course I know that my medium gray is next, but it should also be the furthest one down. And there it is. So I will gently pull that one up and yarn over with it. Come back to the right side here, make sure it's at a nice height, and then just pull that on through for my slip stitch. At this point, I'll go ahead and start getting some of these stitch markers out of the way. So our repeat beginning with round 5 is I'm going to chain 1. Well, that's not part of the repeat, that's just a chain 1 for a turning chain. Then we begin our repeat with a single crochet in the first chain 1 space, followed by a chain 1. Oops, almost started putting the stitch markers back in there. I'm going to do the same thing in the next one. Single crochet and chain 1. Go ahead and take that stitch marker out. Single crochet and chain 1 in the next space. So we've done that 3 times now. And then in the fourth one is where I'm going to do it twice. Single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, all worked into that same space. Get rid of that stitch marker and we begin our repeat again. So I'm going to single crochet and chain 1 in the next chain space 3 times. So that was 1. Oops. Dropped it. There we go. And then 2. Don't forget that chain 1. 3. There we are. Chain 1. And then time for our double. We do a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1. There we go. All in that same chain 1 space. All right, we're almost all the way back around. We've just got 4 more stitch markers. We know we've got 1 more repeat to go for round 5. So single crochet and chain 1 the next 3 chain spaces. So there's 1. Oop. Throwing stitch markers all over the place today. There we go. There's 2. And then 3. Oops, went right through the stitch marker that time. Like I say, at this point, they're almost more in the way, but they are so helpful those first few rounds. Pull up a little bit more yarn here. There we go. And then I'm in my last chain 1 space here, so that's where I'm going to have 2. 1, 2. Again, always single crochet after each always chain 1 after each single crochet. There we go. And then I am ready to slip stitch to that first stitch of round 5. And that's round 5. Now, as I said, round 5 was single crochet and chain 1 in the first 3. So 1, 2, 3, then 2 in the next. 1, 2, 3, 2 in the next. 1, 2, 3, 2 in the next. So as we continue expanding our circle here for our sizes, the next round, where I would pull up my next color here, again, color C, it's time for that one. There we are. And begin this one, it's going to be, for my increases now, it's going to be, again, just working into the chain 1 spaces, but we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochets with the chain 1, and then 2 in the 5th one. So each time we're going to go up by 1 number. So in round 5, we had single crochet and chain 1 in the next chain 1 space 3 times before we had 2. In this round, we will do it 4 times before we have 2. Then for round 7, it will be 5 times before we have 2. And that will just keep us increasing all the way around. So let's go ahead and just work round 6 together to give you an idea of how this is going to keep working, and then we will skip ahead to our work even rows, because the number of increase rounds that you make will depend on the size of the hat you're making. So again, check the written pattern where it will be very clear and you'll be able to see exactly how many rounds to make for each size. So let's go ahead and make round 6 together before we move on to our even rounds. I'm going to start again, of course, with the chain 1. Then I am going to single crochet and chain 1 in the chain 1 space 4 times. So that's 1. Go to the next one, 2. Oh, forgot to straighten out my yarn, didn't I? There we go. Go to the next one is 3. chain 1. The next one is 4. Don't miss this one. This is going to be right in between the two that made together there. And then in the 5th one, that's where we have 2. So that's a little visual clue too. From the rounds from this point on, as long as you're increasing, your next increase will always be after the increase you made in the previous round. So then we're ready to begin our repeat again. Single crochet in the next one and chain 1 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, chain 1, and we're ready for that increase again. So I hope this has given you an idea of how these increases work. And pull it up together here. We've got just one more repeat. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. There we go. And then, of course, time for another double. So 2 single crochets with chain 1s after each one in that last chain 1 space. And then, of course, we're ready to join. So again, follow the written pattern to see exactly how many of these increase rounds you'll need to work before you go to the even rows. The even rows are all going to be exactly the same, so I'll show you how to work those now. All right, so when we're making our beanies, those increase rounds, since we're working top down, create the diameter or the circumference, the roundness, the size, if you will, of the hat. So then we need to work even rows to pull it down into a hat shape so we don't end up with just a circle, and those are going to be the rows right here between the circle and the brim. So to work those, it's basically the same line of instruction. We're just going to continue changing colors for our pattern. And then of course, each hat size has a different number of times that you'll repeat this round of instruction. So again, reference the written pattern. There's 6 different sizes, and that will tell you exactly how many rounds to work for this even round. So I'm going to show you a little tip. We're going to use our stitch markers one more time to help us count those as well. So let me get those out and ready here. There we go. Then we'll go ahead and begin the even round instructions. So again, you're going to find your next color in pattern. No matter where it is, every size is going to be a little different because of course each size has a different number of rounds, so whichever would normally come next for you. Then we're going to begin just as we did the other rounds. We're going to go into that next chain 1 space and yarn over and pull through with our new color, like so. Then it's really quite simple. This is where the moss stitch becomes super easy and fun. We're going to chain 1, go right back into that chain 1 space there for a single crochet, and then we're just going to work evenly around, which means we chain 1, skip the next stitch, and single crochet in the next chain 1 space. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, single crochet in the next chain 1 space. So basically what we were doing before, except now we don't have to go into any of those chain spaces twice. We're just going to put a single crochet in each one. Just make sure you make a chain 1 and skip, of course, as we have been doing, those stitches in between. This whole pattern, until we get to the brim, is only worked in the chain 1 spaces. So that is really fun. For those who hate working into a foundation chain, this is sort of an ideal situation. We'll have a little bit of that when we get into the scarves and cowls and other patterns for this pattern set, but you can look forward to those coming up soon too. And I will be showing you some other ways to make the moss stitch in those patterns. So again, if you haven't gone to the link in the description yet, definitely check that out because we're going to be doing some really fun things with this stitch pattern all month, including some giveaways happening in October 2018. So you don't want to miss those either. So you can see I've gone all the way around. That's really all there is to it for the even rows. Single crochet in each chain 1 space, chain 1, skip of course that stitch in between, and then when you get to the end, you just slip stitch that first stitch. Then we do it again. Exact same line of instructions. Go into the next chain 1 space, pull up that next color, whatever it would be in your pattern, in your color choices there, and then chain 1 and start again. Single crochet in the chain 1 space, chain 1, skip the next stitch, all the way around. This is known as the moss stitch. Sometimes it's called the linen stitch or the granite stitch. It has lots of names, but it's definitely a favorite. It's also a big one for those who like to do planned pooling. So if you wanted to play with yarn like that for this pattern, you certainly could, although I have not figured out the numbers to make it work with these. So you can just have your own experiment with your own striped yarns and see what happens. or your own variegateds, I guess I should say, for planned pooling. But this would be fun with a striped yarn too. You could do so many fun things with this pattern. Again, if you only use 2 colors, you're going to get a really different look too. So the moss stitch is infinitely variable and one of the favorites for that exact reason. So like I said, follow your written pattern. Make sure that you work the number of rounds worked evenly. Now my little tip for that is, this is obviously our second one we're making now, but when we made that first one, what I meant to tell you to do, and I'll tell you to do now, that previous round, which we know was our first round worked even, go ahead and put a little stitch marker right on the outside of the hat, right through that stitch. Then when you count your even rounds, you can just count starting right with that row and go 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. for however many rounds you need for your size. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish out this round, and then I will show you how to work the brim, which is going to be the same for all sizes of this hat. Okay, so I've added a couple more rounds here just to sort of turn our little sample into more of a hat shape. And I wanted to point out here, this is that first round that I worked even. Make sure when you count your rounds for this pattern that you don't just move up. Normally, you know, when we might think about counting rounds or rows, we might just sort of move up this way. But if you do that, you'll see with this one, you're only going to be counting every other round. So make sure to count diagonally. So you can start with that marked stitch and count this direction. Again, just think about your color order, and that will help you make sure you count each one of those rounds so you can get the right height for your hat. So after you have finished making the number of rounds indicated for your size, it's time to switch hooks. We're going to put down our K hook and switch over to our smaller I hook. I'm going to go ahead and just put that right back in that last loop we made. Now before I do begin the brim, one other thing I did want to point out was here's the inside. I'm going to go ahead and flip it right on, wrong side out. This is the inside of that smallest hat I made. And you can see here where I've pulled those stitches, those colors, right along the inside of the hat. You can see they aren't really too loose, but they aren't tugging and pulling either. So that's what the inside of your hat, you can see it swirls all the way around here as we move into that next slip stitch. That's what the inside of your hat should look like, of course, in whichever colors you used. So now, like I say, we're ready to begin the brim, and it's going to be the same for all the sizes. You can use whichever color you prefer. I like to use my color B for this one. So that's what I've worked my way back to. Since I know the brim is just going to be color B, I went ahead and cut colors A and C too. So I can go ahead and just sort of drop that back there, hold it out of the way for now. Then I'm going to go and I am going to actually pull this hook back out for a minute because I realized I need to do one other thing. I'm going to pull this stitch out so that we just have that chain one there after our last stitch of our last even round. And it's okay, go ahead back in with your I hook there if you prefer. Go into that stitch like we were going to slip stitch, but at this point is where I want to pull up that color for the brim because I'm not going to be slip stitching into the next chain one space. So I actually want to finish the last stitch of my worked even rounds with my next color. So you can go ahead and just pull back to that if you want to there. Sort of tug it down, and there we go. We're ready to start crocheting with our brim color. And again, this is the smaller hook. So now I'm going to chain one, and then I'm going to work a half double crochet in each single crochet stitch and a double crochet in each chain space. So a half double crochet, of course, is yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. Then we double crochet in the chain space. So I yarn over, go into that chain space, and make a double crochet. And I'm just going to work evenly all the way around. Half double crochet in each single crochet, double crochet in each chain space. So however many stitches and chain spaces you made for the last round of your work even rounds and the last round of your increase rounds, that's how many stitches you'll have in this round. So, whoops, I put a half double crochet in that chain one space. So I'm just going to pull back. There we go. It's an easy enough repeat, but when you're talking at the same time, it's easy to lose your place. So I'm just going to continue making half double crochets and double crochets on around here for my brim round 1, and I will see you when we get to the end of this round. Okay, so for brim round 1, like I say, half double crochet in each single crochet, double crochet in each chain space until you get all the way around, and then we're ready to just finish off with a slip stitch in that first half double crochet made. Then we're ready to make brim rounds 2 and 3, which are exactly the same. Both of them will be worked this way. We begin with a chain 1, and then we begin our repeat. We half double crochet in the half double crochet, and then we're going to work a front post double crochet around the next stitch. So for this round, it'll be around a double crochet. The next round, it will be around the previous front post double crochet. So to do that, I'm going to yarn over, go around the stitch like so, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. If you're not familiar with post stitches, again, I do have a separate tutorial for that linked at the link in the description. So the next stitch gets a half double crochet, because it's a half double crochet, and then front post double crochet around the next stitch. And that's our repeat. Half double crochet in the next half double crochet, front post double crochet around the next one. And of course, when we get to the end, we will just join with a slip stitch again. And then, so that would be round 2, and then round 3, again, exactly the same. It's just a little bit easier even because you'll be working your front post stitches around the previous front post stitches. So that is it for rounds 2 and 3. So I will see you at the end of this round. Okay, so here I am at the end of round 2. I've worked a slip stitch into that first half double crochet I made, and I'm ready to make my round 3. I'm not going to demo it because it's exactly the same as round 2. I'll do just the first couple stitches here. We chain 1, half double crochet right in the top of that half double crochet again, like that, and then front post double crochet around the next stitch. In this round, you'll be working around front post double crochet, but it's the same thing. You just go around the post of the stitch, pull up your loop, and continue like so. So that gives us that great ribbed look for our brim. Now, after you've done that for round 3, we are going to make round 4, and that's the final round of our hat. And again, the same for every size. So we chain 1, and instead of working a half double crochet here, we're just going to work a single crochet there. And then around the post stitches, we're going to work front post single crochets. So we don't yarn over first, we just go around the stitch the same way again, right around that post, pull up a loop, and finish our single crochet. That's our repeat. Single crochet in the next stitch, front post single crochet right around the next one, single crochet in the next one, front post single crochet in the next, like so. And when we continue all the way around and of course join and break our yarn, we will have finished a brim that looks just like that. And again, it's the same brim for every size of the hat. So you can finish it off and have a hat for any person in the family. So that's how you make the Autumn Amore Beanie. Again, the free pattern for all 6 sizes is on mooglyblog.com at the link in the description. You'll want to pick up 3 colors, or however many you like, of Red Heart Amore to make this pattern, as well as US I and K hooks. And again, I do recommend you use stitch markers. It just makes it that much easier. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video helped you make your own beanie. And again, if you're watching this in October 2018, be sure to go to the link in the description so you can enter all the giveaways and other fun things going on with this crochet along, and make sure you get the matching patterns as they debut as well. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button.